Okay. That was wow. That was stunningly bad amount of technology. Okay, so where were we? How far in did I get to the explanation of the Timber versus the Tundra while I'm preparing to open the 105? So basically, recapping, Chris and I flew the Tundra last summer. Actually, we've been flying the last 2 summers out in Ohio during the trip. And Mike, of course, had the Timber. And the Tundra is more of a sports car, you know, like super light, very nothing. There's not a whole lot to it. Where the Timber is more like a GT, you know, like a well done up car. So there is some very very specific differences to it, and it's heavier, and but the stall capabilities on the Tundra were very impressive. So that said, I got the Micro because I enjoyed that airplane a lot, but I still think I like my Tundra a little bit more for the speed and the weight. So here we are, back to trying to open a box. Hopefully the network keeps up. And yes, this is the 105, the Thunderchief. So Chris and Mike both had those over the previous weekend for the podcast, and mine just came in. Mike is gone with the Thunderchief, Chris is gone with the P15, and I get both because I don't know. Again, I'm going to be using a FrSky compatible receiver, just a little tiny one. I don't have one in any of the airplanes right now to show you, but it's just a little tiny thing. So, spec-wise, what do we got here holding the box up? We have a 530 millimeters, so a 20.8 inch wingspan. The length is 800 millimeters or 31.5, and it weighs in at 360 grams without a battery. They recommend a 1000 to 2200 3S battery and a 4-channel receiver. It has a 64 millimeter 5-blade fan, 2227 450 kV brushless outrunner motor, so exact same spec as the P15, 30 amp ESC, and 2 9-gram servos. Here we go. Pop. So, this one obviously is a little larger, a little bigger, but really nice color scheme. I've liked the looks of it a lot recently, so pop this foam out, try not to make too much squeaky noise. Again, we're just going to look at it. I'm not going to do the assembly here on the camera because I will save that for later, but it is much. Do you know which is slower, the 105 or the Crusade? I looked at the 8 recently. One of the guys at the field had it. I think Alpha felt that this thing had a better flying envelope due to I think way the intakes were and everything, and the wing stance. So it will be interesting. We'll see if we can get our hands on a Crusader as well, and just compare. So there are some elements down in here. Remember, when you're opening your packages, to always go through. Again, you get spars, you have your control links. Always dig around to make sure there's nothing missing. That nose and packaging was really done well, actually. There's no carnage. Actually, we'll pull that bag. We'll get the next piece out, and then we'll pull the bag. One of the wings with the intake. The other wing. And the tail section. And the static vertical stabilizer. And there we go, another box. Let's get rid of some plastic and have a good peek at it. So, let's see. Oh, this is neat. So, again, if you listen to the podcast, when we talked about this aircraft, it was one of those ones which is neat from the sense that it runs both the sets of controls off just 2 sets of servos. So that's pretty cool to see. There's the EDF way in the back. And I'm going to pop the hatch. And we'll have a look on the inside. Again, real simple. Nice construction. Actually, look at that. I don't know if you can see it on shelf, but that's a nice skid plate to land the whole thing on. So that's pretty neat. Yeah, nothing. Yeah, and we've all done it. I got really lucky on some parts recently, and I thought they were missing. It turns out it was a tiny little bag, and the manufacturer had jammed the screws into the side of the foam. So I was like, oh, there they are. But that's pretty neat. So it's one of those things on the canopy. It's not one. Don't push down because you'll just end up destroying the plywood, the strike plate on the back of the plywood. So it's a click and engage. But that's pretty cool. There's the EDF. You can get a really good shot of the EDF, I think. Yeah, let's see if I can play with the angles. The rear piece, this feels like that's plywood, so that's pretty cool. And I guess the whole, yeah, that screws in, and once you put that rear wing into place, everything locks down. More depth when burring. Hey, and I mean, if anybody's heard the stories, when I augered in the F-16, that nose was hammered into the ground rather impressively, I felt. So it happens, and it happens to all of us. That nose, in case you're wondering, is a piece of plastic. It's actually plastic, so, and it's a little squishy. So I'm sure there's a little bit of foam built in there, but then the rest is. So you got a little bit of you got a little bit of wiggle and a little bit of squishy before everything goes real crazy. That's actually a really neat color. I think this one would be pretty easy to track with the green nose. I've seen a couple other paint jobs so far. I'm just opening up the parts so we can have a look. Scissors. There we go. There's the rear control surfaces. So I have read and seen a couple reports where people have gone in and they've added 2 extra servos. But if you'd listened to the podcast Alpha, it was basically of the mindset that, look, this is what works. It keeps it, sorry about the noise. It keeps it nice and light and pretty simple. So, and I guess that's one of the reasons these aircraft are fairly popular. If you think about the price point, it's kind of hard to, build anything else in that range. So, is that a V-tail? Well, actually, it's a V-tail, but you've got 2 servos. No, it's not a V-tail, but you have 2 servos driving your ailerons and your elevator. So you get a little bit of mixing, and I think it's just based on the throw and how they do it. So I will be reading the radio, the manual to see how they do this in the radio, because obviously you're still running on 3 channels, but the mix and how it hooks through is going to be kind of curious. So I'm going to be going through, and obviously you will see a bit more of a video on how I get it all set up after I'm done the build, and I have some chance to play on the radio and actually read the manual. So there's one of the wings. So that's pretty cool, and that goes in, and obviously the spar is there, and then you glue that in. So it's not an aircraft that you will disassemble. I'm sorry, here, you can't see that from this angle. So I'm just looking to see where it all meets up and how it goes in, and it appears that this lines up there, and that lines up there, so I'm going to hook that guy in nice and clean just for a dry fit. And there's one. Rattle, 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 rattle. We'll just do some dry fit, and that way we have a good idea of what this looks like. There. Static rudder, and then the last wing piece. And again, it's 1,000. Oh yeah, it's not a very big airplane, but